Inviting compassion. Few words are as misunderstood as compassion. Many of us think of it as soft, sentimental, or reserved for saints. Yet compassion is one of the most radical invitations we can extend, especially to ourselves. In recovery and growth, anger and shame often rise to the surface. Anger can feel like a fire that consumes everything. Shame seeps in quietly, whispering that we are unworthy. Left uninvited, both emotions corrode the soul. Compassion does not erase these emotions. It sits with them. It listens. It says, "You belong here too." To invite compassion is to meet anger and shame with presence rather than judgment, and to let kindness transform what punishment never could. The weight of anger and shame. Anger is often treated as dangerous, something to suppress. But anger, at its core, is a signal. It tells us that a boundary has been crossed, that something deeply important has been violated. When ignored, it festers. When expressed destructively, it wounds. Shame, by contrast, whispers from the shadows, "You are not enough. You don't deserve love." While guilt can point us toward repair, shame convinces us that we are broken beyond repair. Together, anger and shame can feel overwhelming. They convince us to lash out or to shut down, yet both carry information. Both reveal the depth of our needs and longings. Compassion is the invitation to pause in the midst of anger and shame and say, "I see you. I will not abandon you. Let's walk together." Why this matters. Without compassion, we remain caught in cycles of punishment toward ourselves and others. Anger turns into violence or bitterness. Shame turns into silence and disconnection. With compassion, we reclaim choice. We begin to see anger not as something to fear, but as a teacher. We recognize shame not as truth, but as a signal that a wound needs tending. Compassion is not weakness. It is strength in another form, the kind that refuses to let fear have the final word. Rebellion here means rejecting the harsh inheritance of self-criticism and replacing it with the radical practice of gentleness. Practices. Begin by naming the emotion. Think of a recent moment when anger or shame arose. Write it down and be specific. Then pause and listen. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Anger often points to a boundary that has been crossed. Shame often signals an inherited story that does not belong to you. Finally, respond with kindness. Write one compassionate statement back to yourself. You might say, "It makes sense that I'm angry. Something important was crossed." Or you might remind yourself, "This shame isn't mine to carry. I choose to invite kindness here." Reflection questions. How has anger shown up in your life? What about shame? What patterns did you inherit about how to handle these emotions? What happens when you pause to listen instead of suppress? How might compassion reshape the story you tell yourself? Science Corner. Neuroscience shows that naming emotions reduces their intensity by calming the brain's fear centers. Self-compassion practices activate the prefrontal cortex and release oxytocin, which soothes stress and fosters resilience. Shame thrives in silence, but loses power when spoken and met with kindness. Anger, when acknowledged, becomes a guide for setting boundaries rather than a weapon. Compassion literally rewires the brain, making it easier to choose presence over punishment. Poet's Corner. Rilke, in Letters to a Young Poet, offers this wisdom. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything terrible is in its deepest being something helpless that wants help from us. Rilke suggests that what frightens us, our anger, our shame, our grief, may actually be waiting to be met with courage and kindness. Compassion reframes the dragons as teachers. Pause with these lines. What dragons in your life might be asking not for suppression, but for compassion? A beautiful question. Flowing from Rilke's words, let this question guide you. What might change if I treated the dragons in my life as invitations to act with beauty and courage, rather than enemies to defeat? Let this question linger. Let it soften your posture toward yourself and others.